Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session on Covidence Extraction 1.2. Extraction 1 has seen some fantastic updates in recent months, making it much more flexible. In this session, we'll walk you through the entire process of extracting your data using this improved tool. My name is Delindia Green Lachlan, and I'm a community manager here at Covidence, based in the U.S. I'll be a presenter for today's session, along with my colleague Geeta Iskandarani, a consultant systematic reviewer. We're also joined today by Razia Aliani, another consultant systematic reviewer, who will be helping to answer your questions in the background. Today's session is being run in standard webinar mode. All webinar attendees will be muted. However, you can ask questions at any time. Please enter those questions into the questions box, and we will do our best to answer them during the webinar. If someone asks the same question, you could upvote the question. Also, if we don't have time to answer all of your questions before the session ends, we will follow up with you via email afterwards. Keep in mind, we are also recording the webinar, and you will receive a link to the recording by email within the next 24 hours. Also, the recording and slides of today's webinar will be available on the Knowledge Base page. My colleague Razia is now posting the link in the chat box where you'll be able to access the recording and slides for this session. Thank you, Razia. Before we jump in, I'm going to provide a little bit of contextual information about Covidence for anyone here who's not familiar with the platform. Covidence was created by and for the research community and is designed to streamline the review process from importing your references through title and abstract screening to data extraction and the risk of bias assessment. The platform allows our review teams to significantly reduce the amount of time spent on reviews, meaning people are able to produce high-quality evidence faster. We have a full-time team based around the world, continuously working on improving the product and providing technical support to our global user community. Covidence is a cloud-based online platform, nothing to download or update. And we support the world's largest review community with over 500,000 users around the world. So the focus of today's session is the data extraction section of the review workflow, which is probably the most complex part of any review, and it is the stage you will get to before you export your data outside of Covidence. So what will we cover today? During today's webinar, we will first begin by defining what is data extraction. Next, we will provide an overview of the data extraction process using Covidence Extraction 1.2. Next, we'll walk through a live demo to show you the tool in action and visit some of the key features. Last, we'll wrap up with a question and answer session to answer your questions. So before we get started, Geeta will go ahead and we will run a poll. We're interested to see how many of you have used Covidence for data extraction before. And we can see the polls are coming in. In just a moment, we'll go ahead and share those results. In the meantime, if you have used data extraction, you can tell us about your experiences by using the questions box on the right side of the screen. So we can go ahead and share the results now. Okay, so we see 32% yes and 68% no. And that's okay. Data extraction is probably the hardest part of the systematic review process. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll see how Covidence is able to make the process smoother and easier for you. So we'll go ahead and stop sharing. So what is data extraction? Data extraction involves gathering and organizing data from studies to facilitate analysis or the creation of a narrative review. Of a narrative summary? Why is it important? Well, the purpose of a data collection or a data extraction template is to collect only the information you need in a standardized way, reducing the need to repeatedly reference original sources. Next, to ensure a systematic approach, a review framework like the PICO framework can be used, which helps capture the essential data required for the intended analysis. Now, we recommend developing this template at an early stage in the review process. Many review teams include a sample data collection form as a part of their protocol. Having the information set out early in the review process will reduce bias. So how can we achieve this? You can achieve this by creating a well-structured data extraction template based on your protocol, piloting it with a few studies to ensure clarity, consistency, collecting data systematically, and reaching consensus between reviewers on any discrepancies, and finally, exporting the data for analyses or synthesis. We'll now begin exploring Extraction 1 and how it can support your data extraction process. Covidence supports you in building a clear, structured data extraction template. In Extraction 1, we provide a standardized extraction template that can be tailored to suit your review type, whether that's an intervention or non-intervention review. Now, there's no best way to build a data extraction template. It depends on your review's purpose, the types of data you're collecting, and your specific outcomes of interest. With that being said, the process generally follows 5 key steps. So first, we will start by designing a clear and easy to use template. A well-structured template reduces confusion and errors. Start to think about the order and logic of the questions. Now, building an effective template often takes some iteration. I'm sorry. Think of the data extraction template as the mold that shapes all the extraction forms you'll use. It provides the structure and consistency for all collecting data across your included studies. Next, we will publish your template. Once finalized, publishing makes it available for all reviewers to begin data extraction. The next step in Covidence is to start extracting your data. You can begin with a few studies as a pilot. Now, there's no need to wait until screening is fully complete. Test the template and make adjustments as needed. Covidence allows changes to the template at any time. Next, we're ready to reach consensus. In dual reviewer mode, reviewers compare extracted data and resolve differences to finalize entries. In single reviewer mode, only one person completes the extraction with no consensus required. And the last stage in Covidence is to export your data. Once consensus is reached or extraction is complete in single mode, you can export your data for analyses and synthesis. Now, from Extraction 1, a CSV or Excel export format is available to export the data that has been gathered during the data extraction process. That facilitates import of extracted data into statistical programs such as Stata or SPSS, whichever statistical software package you select. The template controls the form. In Extraction 1, the template that you create will control the data extraction form that will be used by the reviewers to extract data from individual included studies, as you can see here. During extraction, you will locate the data that you need in the PDF and capture it to enter into the data extraction form that you see here on the screen. Now, the Extraction 1 template is organized into 6 key sections, and Gita will demonstrate this shortly. You will see identification, that's the first section of the form, followed by the methods section, followed by population, and it's depending upon whether you're doing an intervention or exposure or other phenomena of interest. You will see that section as well, followed by the outcome and results data. These sections help structure and standardize the data you collect across studies. Now, Gita will now walk us through each of these during the live demo and walk us through how the data extraction experience works in Covidence's Extraction 1-2.
Great, thank you so much, Delinda.
I'll stop sharing.
Yes, please. Yeah, so I'll share my screen now. Thank you very much. Okay, are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Great, thank you so much, Delinda, for this introduction. This is really helpful. So now it's time to do the live demonstration and show you how the extraction one looks like in Covidence. So now I'm on a demo review that is already in progress. And usually the right way to select or to start your extraction is by going to the extraction stage, which is usually the end stage or the final stage of your screening in any Covidence review. So this is the first page in any Covidence review, and you go to the extraction panel and then click on continue. So let's begin by looking how extraction 1 looks like. Access the extraction 1 and start creating a data extraction template, you'll see 2 buttons at the top right. One, it will tell you to create a data extraction template, and another button, blue button, which will say to create a quality assessment template. So this means, and as Delinda mentioned earlier, more or less the template controls the form. So you'll end up with your included studies. However, on the right-hand side, it will show you and ask you to create a template to begin extraction. So you can either click on creating a data extraction button from here, or click on the create a template hyperlink as well from the form itself. So this will take you to the actual masterpiece or the template, which is our data extraction template for extraction 1. So once you land on the data extraction template, a good starting point is to explore our support resources. So watch this short video guide. It's around 20 minutes, and it will show you more or less and reflects how you can set up the template according to a protocol, and then more or less show you how this actually is in your study forms. And on the right-hand side, there's a button for you to more or less take you to our support articles to help you set up each section of your template. So the template, as well as Delinda indicated earlier, that it includes 6 main sections: the identification section, methods, population for your participants, and interventions, but that could be as well tailored among your review needs, whether you're doing a non-intervention review, it could be an exposure or other phenomena of interest. And finally, finishing with the outcomes and results data section. So you'll see as well that each section has some preset fields, but you can remove any fields that aren't relevant by simply unselecting them like this, and customize other parts of the template to fit the needs of your review protocol or outline. So let's start with the identification section. The identification section of the template is designed to capture general information about your studies, including where it was conducted, how it was funded, and how to contact, let's say, the lead author if you have any questions. There are over 3 subheadings. The study details subheading has 4 default fields that can be removed, and simply by unselecting again the field that you do not need to show on your study form. So you only collect or click on the ones you just want to have available on your study forms for all your included studies. So the sponsorship source is a place to record how the study was funded. Country is a place where to record where the study was conducted. Settings, as well, is a place for noting the type of place or environment the study was conducted in. And the comments is a place to capture anything else noteworthy about the study to consider during synthesis or write-up. The next subheading is the author's contact details. So this is a place to add as well all the information relevant to the author, let's say your lead, either the lead or corresponding author, if you wish to seek, let's say, any clarification from them when you're actually extracting the data. So you can also unselect the fields, any of these fields that you don't need to appear in your study form, allowing you to tailor the template again to suit the specific review requirements. Next, and the final here section is the additional data subheading, which is a place for you to add additional custom fields to capture other data that wasn't mentioned here. Example, let's say the start and end date as an example, but also maybe I'm interested in the conflict of interest as well. And as well as, for example, the trial, maybe registry number, for example, or the journal type, etc. So anything that you have already provided information about what you would like to collect as a general information from your study, you've already added this in their protocol. It's just here. What you need to do is put that in this section. Next is the methods. So in this section, you can capture the design, aims, and conduct of the study. So we've got two subheadings. The methods details subheading has two default fields that can also be removed from the template. And again, by simply unchecking the one you don't need. The design section is a drop-down field with 7 common designs and the other option to record the study design of the study. But it's a great thing to do is to see this in going really or happening on how it actually looks on the study form is by clicking on the example preview here. So this will show you an example, an illustration from a study form on how exactly the design section will look like. And this is the drop-down menu I was just talking about. It will give you more or less the list of 7 common study designs that you might just select from, and depending on your included study design of your study. So next is the additional data subheading. So this is a place as well to add additional custom fields to suit the specifics of your review that was not captured. So in this case, I might need to add one field for my study aim. Another one maybe that I'm interested is in the method of recruitment, which means that I will need to select or make sure that I extract the data, whether the recruitment was in clinics or through surveys, etc. So I'm just giving examples, but this is, again, you have always to go back to what you have actually added in your protocol. Next is the population. In this section, you can capture details about the population included in the study, including the eligibility, as well as the differences between groups and the baseline characteristics. So fields within the population section of the template are listed under 3 subheadings as well. So the first one is the population details. It has 3 default fields that can also be removed and unchecked. And this means that they will allow you to just to record the ones only you need, and they will be presented on your study form as such. Next is the additional data subheading, which allows you to add custom fields to suit the specifics of the review as well, which is not captured within other subheadings. So there are some examples here, such as total sample size, number of withdrawals. We've provided these for you as an example, but you can always delete the fields that are not net relevant or add a new one that you find relevant and suits your review needs. And finally, the baseline characteristics subheading, which doesn't include any default fields as well, similar to the additional data. But what's different here is the baseline characteristics is a place where more or less will provide you with custom fields to add and that are relevant for you to add all about the characteristics of your participants. And these will appear as a table when completing data extraction for each study, with a row for each baseline characteristic you add, and a column for each intervention group reported in the study and the overall population column. So it's a good idea to click on the example preview again and see this in action. So you can see at the bottom, there's this table, which is going to be automatically created. Again, for every row, there's a characteristic for your participants that you added in the custom fields, and then these separate columns will represent your different intervention groups. So you can then export the data of your participants in each group. Okay, so next is the intervention section of the template. And this is designed to capture details about your interventions. But again, depending on the type of review, it could be mixed methods, it could be an non-intervention review, it could be an exposure or other phenomena of interest. And please feel free to use this place to add any other phenomena of interest in this section. So it might be misleading that it's only relevant to an intervention review, but at the moment, it has the flexibility for you to accommodate other than an intervention as well. And usually your interventions or other phenomena of interest or exposure are user-defined within the template at the review level. So this is something you have decided in your protocol as well. And when creating and clicking on the Setup Now and creating these interventions, users will require to use a new wizard, as you can see, to set up the intervention section of the template. So on the left side, you can enter the interventions or exposures as defined in your protocol. So you can either keep it as general, depending on how general your intervention is. But if you have a specific name and you're only interested in one intervention, such as vitamin C, and instead of control, I'm interested in placebo, you enter these here. And then next, what you could do, if you're dealing with an exposure instead, you can add exposure to the common cold, for example, in this case. So this is just an example if you have an exposure. So instead of an intervention, you are listing an exposure. So on the right-hand side, you'll find an example illustrating how these will display on the study form. So helping you visualize the structure and format. It's very important to see how this will relate to your study form. So their setup allows you to go a step further by adding, as you can see, group names. So there's a group name icon here. So for each intervention or exposure, and this helps, again, how they were described to more or less specify how they were described in the study. So you can also add multiple intervention groups, as you can see, or arms linked to your defined interventions. So this is especially helpful when a study includes more than one group or arm receiving the same intervention, ensuring accurate reporting. So my pain medication in this example, or that was given, is in paracetamol, but then in the same study they gave as well the NSAIDs. So I'm reporting the different names of my interventions. And similar if I added vitamin C and placebo, but it might be that the vitamin C is coming with different doses, such as 500 milligrams versus 1,000 milligrams. And we'll see this in action once we reach the study form. Next, you are required to add the relevant characteristics for your interventions or exposures or arms. So the interventions characteristics defined in this template will appear as well as in a table as shown on the right-hand side of this wizard. And this will appear in a table completing data extraction when completing extraction for each study. So the columns with the columns for each user-defined intervention group. And the characteristics again appearing in rows as well. And once you're done setting them up, so in this case, I'm happy with the ones I have. I can just add the route of administration as an additional field or characteristics, and then I'm just click on done. And this is exactly how then you will see that. And if you need to add more interventions, more characteristics, you can do from here. Okay, next is the outcomes. And more or less, this is the final stage of the or last but not least, because the results data is not a place to set up things, but more or less to give you an overview of what we offer as an outcome measures. So once you're on the outcome section, this is the last place where you can just modify things. So in your protocol, you have outlined the specific outcomes you are interested in. So the outcomes section of the template in extraction one in Covidence is designed to capture both numerical and qualitative data for these outcomes. So as you can see, you have three options. So all you need to do is click on one of these, add the name of the outcome. So it could be duration of cold, for example, and I would like to assess it's a continuous outcome, and then the time point. So by default, there's an end of study generic time point added, which is end of treatment or end of study. So it's either you could keep it as generic as possible, or you could add 8 weeks, for example, be very specific, or you could also keep to be more generic and add, let's say, baseline. And what you could do is reorder the time points as well from here if needed. And now once you're actually on the form in the example preview, this you will see that you'll be able to add a specific reported name for your outcome, as well as a specific reported time as well. So instead of 8 weeks, it was probably reported as 2 months. So you could add this and modify it. And for your baseline, it could be first week, the week one that they actually started the trial, for example. And we'll see this in action just in a few minutes. So all outcomes and time points you add in this section will appear for all studies, allowing you to collect consistent data. And when extracting, again, the outcomes for a study, as the example preview here, show that you'll end up with a table which will be created showing the outcomes in separate columns. And then this will translate to your results data section, which is the final stage. And here, more or less, what you can do is just have a look at what actually we provide in terms of the, let's say, available standard formats for either the continuous, dichotomous, and qualitative outcomes. So for, let's say, for continuous data, the default fields when you start extracting the data is mean, standard deviation, and total, your total sample size. But then you will be able to change these different measures based on what the study reports. So, and this is through the drop-down menus lists that we'll see just shortly as well. And for the dichotomous data, the default measures are events, which are the number of participants with the event, over the total sample size or number of participants. But this as well could be changed, or even you could report both arm level and effect estimates. And finally, for the qualitative data, the default fields will include finding, themes, and code. And if you want to collect any results data formats that you're not seeing or not showing on this standard list that we provide, then you can use the add custom data format. And you could do that and just click on this. And for example, if you want to have, instead of themes, you want to have theme 1 and then theme 2, this is up to you. And then these will also appear on the study form for you to select from. So you can always come back to the template and add additional data for custom data formats at any time, or even modify anything in this template at any time. But once you're happy with the template, make sure that you always click on the publish template. This is the only way it will save. So don't miss clicking on the publish template. And once you do, what will happen is similar to this review here, which has some ongoing studies already. You'll notice that 2 blue buttons at the top right is now turned white. So this is a review that I took you through now, which is going to show you more or less how you can begin or continue your extraction in extraction 1. So let's say now I've published my template, made it available for you. The first thing you'll see is the start blue button here for each study. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll start clicking on a example to start. There's a specific one that I was keen on starting at the moment. Yes, this one. So I click on the start button here, and this will bring me to the actual, more or less, data extractor form. The PDF is going to always be on the left side of your screen. There's a PDF viewer where you can zoom in and out the PDF or search with it for a specific keyword, or just rotate as well. There's a lot of flexibility, and all of that you could do separate of the form. And the right-hand side will always have both the data extraction and quality assessment form. You can toggle between the two at any time. And what we'll do now is I'm going to go through this form today. So first icon you'll see on your study form of your included study is the summary section. And then following the summary sections is the actual list or the sections that we just created in the template, which is again our masterpiece. So one thing to note is that you can easily copy and paste data directly from the studies PDF into your form. So let's say I'm on this section. So you just copy paste things that you find relevant and paste it. This is one thing. And any data entered is saved automatically. You'll see a saved automatically icon at the top. And this is at any time you enter any data on the form, it will automatically save. So your inputs are securely saved as you go. So let's start with the first section, which is the identification sections of the that we just created in the template. So one thing to highlight here, and it's very important, Covidence now provides automatic extraction suggestions, and this is part of the machine learning, where we can source reliable suggestions only if a DOI was linked to your reference and is made available. And usually, the default for all reviews in Covidence that it's enabled, and all the large language model will be enabled in the settings of your review. You can always disable from the settings, but it's by default, it's automatically there. So in the identification section specifically, and the intervention, this is where you're going to see some help from the large language model, such as in this case, you'll see yellow, more or less highlighted information in yellow, the general information of your included study are highlighted in yellow. And this means that the large language model and the metadata were able to process some suggestions. The only thing you need to do is whether you need to accept or reject these. And if there's no input, you can see that it's just empty, then there's no suggestions provided, and you can just add the data manually as well. And the moment you accept this as well, you can still modify it manually. So the data sources include study metadata from external repositories, and this is for both open access and closed access PDFs. And the large language model will as well will be more or less working through open access and closed access studies. Next is the methods section. So as I just indicated earlier, there's a drop-down menu coming with all the 7 study designs. So it's whether it's a randomized control trial, you have to select the correct design of your included study from here and add any other additional data that you find relevant. And this is all under the costing fees that I just added in the methods data section. Next is my population. So let's say if I've selected that I would like to still extract data on the inclusion and exclusion criteria, these will open in text fields and similar to the additional population data. But for the baseline characteristics, you'll see the costing table automatically populated with all the characteristics that you've actually selected on the template or added, on your templates, showing as rows, and the overall column initially, the only column that will show. But the moment you select the intervention, the relevant intervention from your, let's say, form, you'll see the columns populate. And this means that you can now extract the participants' information from, let's say, the different intervention arms, as well as the overall column if needed. So now the intervention section, which is very as well important section. So at the study level, you can use the check boxes as well, as you can see, to select which interventions are included in the study. So you might have just probably listed some more, but you just include the ones that are represented in your study. And I really want to highlight one thing here as well, that it's only the first reviewer who can select the interventions that apply to the study. And they can either add or remove or edit anything related to the intervention group name, or even through the link to suggestion as well, which we'll talk about shortly. And this is similar to the outcomes. So we have some more or less a limitation here, but then you can always, the reviewer 2 can always consult with reviewer 1 if needed. So in the intervention section in extraction 1, the large language model or the automatic extraction suggestions will also be provided. So it's only in the identification so far an intervention section that we have the help of the extraction automatic suggestions provided by the large language model. So at the top of the page, you will notice a yellow banner as well on your intervention section that summarizes the interventions identified in your PDF. So these are extracted again by the large language model from the full text or the PDF, whether uploaded and whether it's in open or closed access. The most important thing is to have a DOI linked to this reference for it to actually work. So once you click on the intervention, and as I just did now, like I'm interested in my vitamin C and placebo. So once you click on the intervention in the template as defined in the template, what you'll notice is the link to suggestion field here will then display a drop-down list of suggestions based on the intervention groups or arms identified in the study's full text. So let's say I have vitamin C, but then also the large language already selected the vitamin C. So it means that this is my intervention. And my placebo is, let's say, in this case, it has identified that placebo is my control arm, and this is correct. So all I need to do is link this link these automatically to the relevant intervention arm. And what I also can do is, after, let's say, more or less matching the intervention arms with the suggestion provided by the large language model, you can also optionally add a multiple group as well, which are linked to your template-defined interventions. So in this case, and add a group name as well for accurate reporting. So in this case, it is in vitamin C, but I have actually two groups of my vitamin C. I have a group reporting on a 500 milligrams dose, and I have a group reporting on 1,000 milligrams dose as well. So this then can be tailored according to the needs of your study. Can be as flexible as you can. And as you can see, there's a custom table that will be automatically populated with rows showing your characteristics of your interventions that you also predefine in the template, along with now we have for each column having the different intervention groups or arms. Okay. And definitely one thing I really like to note, and this is the button that is going now that has recently been released and is available in any section here, is the edit template button. This is very handy. Why? Because while you're actually working, you might still need to modify things through your template. And if you have the option in the Steam settings to do that, to more or less change or edit the template or even create it, you can just click on the edit template. This will redirect you to the template itself that we just created. Add anything you want on these fields. And once you do, it will then, and you go ahead and publish it, it will just make sure that you let you know that if you publish, do you like to go back or move the studies that are in the to incomplete status that we have already completed? So if you do not want that, then you just say no, and the new field will be applied, and then you'll be backed on the same study. Okay, so next is the outcomes section. So similar to the interventions, you can more or less select the only outcomes you need and only outcomes reported at the study level. So you might have a long list of outcomes, but you will need to check only or click on the one or tick on the actual box that is relevant to your study. So let me just maybe select number of calls, duration of call, and symptoms in this case. So what you'll see is, again, a table, which will then automatically be populated. And for every column is the actual different outcome you have selected from this list. And as a reminder, only reviewer one can select which outcomes have been reported in. So in this case, sometimes you might have a time point as, let's say, two month, or let's say instead of 12 weeks, it might be that you have it as 3 month. So in this case, you can just rename the time point. But not only that, you can actually rename or provide the reported outcome name. So instead of number of calls in the study, it was called the called frequency. So this is something that you could use as well. Duration of cold, instead, I have length of cold. Okay, so in this case, you have all the flexibility to change to provide the reported name for the actual outcome, as well as the time point. And you can even remove the time points that were not listed or not relevant to this outcome in this study. So you can be as flexible as possible. And maybe the end of my study is the 5 years time point. So they were very much or less as well specific on how long my end of treatment or study was. So I can be more specific as well for this study. And finally, in the results data tab here, what you could do is you can start adding or extracting the raw data from your included study as well. So this is usually in the tables available with the results. So when you first open the results data section, you'll find a table for each outcome. So each table for each outcome that you have just selected in the outcomes section. And then you'll see some more or less appearing in rows is the intervention or even the multiple intervention arms, as well as the time points. And the columns will show that by default, the actual standard list or measure of your outcome, how it was actually, let's say if it's a continuous outcome, the default measure is going to be mean, standard deviation, and total. So if I have median instead, I can just click that from the drop-down list. And maybe instead of standard deviation, I have an interquartile range. And I also have a p-value. So you can add as well additional columns, delete, or change the one you need as well. So all the flexibility. So similar to the continuous data, we have for qualitative, the finding, themes, and code. And one thing to note is here I'm only allowed to put numerical data in continuous or dichotomous. The data cell will not allow me to add any non-numerical data when it's a continuous or dichotomous outcome. However, once it's an actual qualitative, yes, this is definitely permissible. So you can actually add some qualitative data for your symptoms, for example, information or text information to the finding themes and codes. And this is the main purpose is to add the qualitative data and not only numerical data as well for your outcomes. Okay, so what I'll do next is show you how it actually looks like for the second reviewer as well. So I've already mentioned that there's some restrictions to what the reviewer or reviewer two can do. So more or less, if I'm a reviewer two, and I go directly to the interventions section or outcomes or results data, you always see the same banner at the top saying only first reviewer can set up the outcomes for a study. And let's say to make changes, please speak to Razia, which is first person on a reviewer one on this study. So this means you can either consult with her and then you could then choose what you would need to, let's say, add. Let's say it is already there in the template, but Razia have probably missed selecting it. So maybe this is something she could do from the back end, or then use also the manage reviewers functionality to reassign reviewers as well. Okay, and a few things as well. On the table here is, and the most important is to show you the team settings before I switch back to the slides. So in the team settings, it's really more or less important to view what option and rules we have. So in this case, what you do have is the more or less the rules on assigning a specific person to be the first reviewer for each study. So the moment you start extracting the data in extraction one, you're automatically assigned as the first reviewer. But if you need to maybe lead reviewer to be the person or experienced reviewer, you would like them to be the first reviewer, you can select their name from here. And next is when, let's say, you have the templates can be edited by. So by default, anyone can edit the template and create it. But again, if you need to select specific people who can edit it, this means once you select their name, then the rest of the team will not see the buttons at the top right, and they cannot see the edit template from the form. So they're not going to be allowed because I just chose Razia to be the one or the person who needs to do that. And on the right-hand side, finally, is the consensus can be resolved. So that lets you control who can complete the consensus as well during data extraction. So along with this rule, a consensus reviewer also needs to be either the first or second reviewer at the moment for a study. Okay, so I'll take you now to a few slides where then we can just more or less have a recap on all of these major features that we just more or less demonstrated. So I'll stop by sharing my screen. And okay, so we'll quickly go through each feature. Oops. Oh, sorry, stop sharing for a moment. Um, okay, yeah, I'll start again. Okay, so the first one is the automated extraction suggestions. Again, as demonstrated in today's demo, the Covidence's Extraction 1 will feature some automatic data extraction suggestions, and that's going to be relevant for both the identification and relevant for the interventions section, as I just demonstrated. One thing to note, for it to be activated, GUI has to be, which is known as a digital object identifier, has to be linked automatically upon import along with your reference. And by default, in the review settings, it's going to be enabled or automatically enabled for you. So the only thing is when you start extracting your data and you have a DOI linked to this reference, then you'll see these similar, let's say, yellow suggestions, providing the, again, reliable suggestions for you. And the main purpose is to speed up your extraction process. And next is the ability to add and capture group names, specific group names, as well as multiple intervention groups as well. And this is particularly very, very important as well when you want to be more or less accurate on what was included in your study. So in this case, let's say I've added the relevant suggestions provided by the large language model. And again, sorry, I may probably have missed mentioning that it's very important that you can also, once you select the relevant suggestion, it will help Covidence improve its automation capabilities. And the teams that use the link to suggestions field will be able to leverage any future automation features that will be released by Covidence. So in addition to that, you'll also have the option to add the group name as well as add the multiple group arms as well. And this is specifically important which will help you distinguish between the arms receiving, let's say, different doses or coming with different names, and more again for accurate reporting. Next, capturing the reported outcomes, names, and time points. So again, you have the flexibility to reflect the names that were accurately captured in the study, and the similar for your time points as well, how the reported time was actually as well included in the study. And now that you can extract, in addition to numerical data, also qualitative data. So this is very important if you have qualitative outcomes. Maybe you're doing a mixed methods review and you end up with a lot of qualitative outcomes. This is very handy now. In Extraction 1, you can now add qualitative outcomes to your data extraction template and extract qualitative outcomes from your studies. Extracting the results data. There's a lot of flexibility around that. So again, for each outcome, you have a table showing your interventions arms along with the time points and rows, and for different columns that will help you then extract the raw data. There are some that are set as default, as a standard default measure, but you can then adjust this from the drop-down menu, as you can see here, and add the one you need. And definitely the addition of the ability to add custom data formats as well from the template itself. And finally, then this is very, very important feature that you could switch to a single reviewer extraction mode as well in Extraction 1. So this is a screenshot on the left side showing how it actually looks as a dual reviewer mode. So this is exactly what we saw now. There's a 3 sections of the form, one for reviewer 1, one for reviewer 2, and a consensus section to resolve the consensus between both reviewers. However, once you switch to single reviewer mode from the review settings, you will see only one column, which is going to be assigned to the person only completing the extraction process. And there's no, you do not actually need to complete any consensus step. And finally, on today's demonstration, is the ability to export your data in the chosen in separate forms. So the separate formats, sorry, the CSV, you'll end up with all the data in one sheet, which we can also open in Excel or a Google Sheet. And if you choose the Excel format, this Excel sheet will have study per sheet on each included study. And finally, exporting to Review Manager. This then will produce a series of CSV files that can be checked and then finally imported into the Review Manager software. And that's it. So hopefully, I think if you are a beginner, definitely you might feel that this is a lot and overwhelming. And that's why we're here always to support your review needs. And there's plenty of knowledge-based articles, extensive video tutorials as well, along on how to start your journey, your extraction journey in Covidence. So I highly recommend that. Now I'll hand it back to you, Delindia.
Thank you, Geeta. Thank you for such an amazing demonstration of the platform, of the latest features. You've described in detail the data extraction process and demonstrated its complexity. So what we'll do right now is go ahead and run the second poll.
Mhm.
Geeta
I'll
will
do that.
share that now. In the
Um,
chat box,
Oh, sorry, Delinda.
yes,
While I'm actually sharing the poll, I would
yes,
like to let everyone know that we will stay an extra 15 minutes for questions.
yes.
We see that we have plenty of questions, so we're gonna stay on for another additional 15 minutes to the hour. So for anyone attending, it's completely optional to stay around for the questions. And again, you'll receive a recording within the next uh, day as well. So the poll is now running in India. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, thank you, Geeta. So in the chat box, my colleague Razia is now adding the link to the page on the knowledge base on how to access the demo review. Okay, we're going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. Oh, we'll wait a few moments. There's still some people voting.
Oh, sorry, I ended it, but I'm sharing the results at the moment.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So I see that 62% of those that have voted are very likely to continue to use Covidence. So that's great. And like I said, we have additional information on our knowledge base, and we encourage you to further enhance your learning from today's webinar by making sure to join our upcoming live webinar that will be in May, Building Your Data Extraction Template. And you can also scan the QR code here located on the screen to sign up for that, as well as try out our demo of Extraction 1.2. So also, here is the QR code also that you can access for our free download of our practical guide to data extraction. I think this will be very helpful during the process. So we'll go ahead and take questions. For those of you who are done for today, we thank you for joining. With any questions or concerns about today's webinar, anything that we didn't get a chance to answer, you can write into our support channel, or visit our knowledge base, or even stay back for the additional 15 minutes that Geeta just mentioned.
Great. Thank you so much,
Thank
Delindia.
you.
Razia, back to you.
Thank you so much for your engagement throughout the session. So there are a lot of questions to answer. So as Geeta mentioned, we will have to stay for I think 15 more minutes, which is optional. So what I'll do is I'll prioritize by the questions with the highest upvotes, and we'll take it from there. So Christine's question is that can you have two different data extraction forms for one study? For example, one form for qualitative study and another form for quantitative study. So, Christine, I'll just start by answering the question and I'll hand over to Geeta. So basically, you cannot have two forms per study, but what you can do is that, as Gita showed you in the template, that you can create different interventions. So for example, you have qualitative studies and you have quantitative studies. For qualitative studies, you have some specific outcomes or some specific interventions, and for quantitative studies you have another. So in your interventions, basically you can use that part to list all your quantitative groups or the qualitative as well, and in the outcomes as well. Basically you can list all your quantitative outcomes and the qualitative outcomes as well, and then when you're actually extracting the data, you can select what you want to extract in terms of what's reported in the study. And then I'll hand over to Geeta to add anything
No,
you would like.
thank you, Razia. Yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to say. Yes, you can more or less, if your study is a mixed method, for example, and reporting on both the qualitative and the quantitative aspect of things, you could add these all in the template and then select only the ones you need or reported depending on the type of study you're including or extracting from.
Thanks, Geeta. So another question that we have is, how can we create an extraction template when individual studies have different interventions or a variety of interventions are used?
Yes, this is a very, very common question as well that we have from our users. So in this case as well, I would recommend keeping the intervention as intervention on the template and just keep it generic. And then once you're on the study form, you'll have the ability, as I showed you earlier. I'm just going to go through the slides again because this is relevant, definitely relevant. So in this slide, it will show you if, let's say, you keep that vitamin C instead of vitamin C listed, you keep it as an intervention, but instead you can use the group name to exactly provide the names of the multiple interventions included in your study. So it could be physical therapy, but there's a lot of types. So you could just be more specific in the form and for each study. And one thing to note again, if the automation is enabled on your review, the link to suggestion field will provide as well additional suggestions. It might be that it can locate the different types of interventions you actually need to extract from this study. So make sure that you just check this as well. And the drop-down will show all the provided suggestions so you can select from it as well, just as a first stage before adding it as a group name. Okay.
Thank you, Geeta. So then we have question from Rachel. When adding custom fields, is Covidence
Mhm.
still able to automatically extract the information, or is automatic extraction only possible with the default fields? Rachel, we have specific fields where Covidence can give you automatic suggestions, and those were in the identification section and in the intervention sections, as Geeta showed in the demo.
Yes, only to date, but it's work in progress. And I would like to highlight one thing. That's why it's very important to map the suggestions provided with your interventions, because this will give Covidence the chance to provide further automation suggestions, let's say, such as the characteristics and the results data section.
Thank you for emphasizing that, Geeta. Then we have question from Bridget, that can you send articles back to full text review if they have been added in error to the extraction section of Covidence? Yes, you can do that. So you will see in the extraction section, below each reference, there will be an option, move move reference back to screening, move back to screening. You can just click that, and you'll be able to send the article back to full text review. Then we have question from Lisa. One issue I've had is with false conflicts. People type the same extraction data, but use different wordings or spelling. Is there a way to avoid that? So yeah, I mean, that's a valid concern, we would say. The thing is that, yeah, in the multi-select, that's not a problem, but specifically in qualitative data, that is an issue. Um, there are, so for the short answer, so for example, if you are adding a short answer for setting, what I generally recommend is that when you're typing your question in the bracket, add in the options and ask your reviewers to just copy paste the options. So it can be minimized in that way. But in terms of qualitative long text, unfortunately, there is no way to reduce, to minimize that sort of conflicts. But I mean, the conflict resolution process itself is just pretty smooth. I would say you can just click whichever data you want to select, or you can just type onto that to edit anything. Then we have question from Lauren. If I'm interested in the outcome depression and a study uses multiple measures for this, is there a way to add multiple measures for the same outcome? At the moment, I have added multiple outcomes under heading like depression 1, depression 2. Is there a better way to do this? Geeta, would you like to take this?
Yes, yes, sure. So in this case, yes, I am probably visualizing that it's a depression one, depression two, but different scales that could be used in within the same study. So unfortunately, at the moment, we cannot add multiple outcomes to accommodate this. So what I would suggest is keep adding depression one and two in the template. And once you're including the actual, let's say, scale, they use probably different scales for each. Then you could just add the reported name with provide the scale name for each one of them. And make sure, let's say, depression one is for that kind of scale and depression two is that for that kind of scale. Because when you export your results, you'll be able to know which one you're referring to. So keep depression one for the same scale, for example. But yeah, this is the workaround we're suggesting, that you add the actual most scales you probably would be provided by your included studies. Let's say there are five. Just add depression one, two, three, four, five on the template, and then select only the one you need from the form, and just add the reported name and provide the scale name. As well as if they added another one, you could select the second scale and put the name of the second scale as well. I hope this answered the question, Razia.
Yeah, it I think it does. Thank you so much. Then we have question from Daewoo that can you please provide a simplified and less complicated training for researchers in social science or not involved in medically related research? So Daewoo, in May, we have another webinar, May or June, we have another webinar that's where we will look at a mixed method protocol, and then based on that protocol, will guide how to create your template. So since it's mixed methods, you might feel that more relevant to you because we will be showing how to extract, for example, qualitative data and stuff like that. So hopefully that might be useful for you. So please do attend that meeting, that session, and I have added the link in the webinar chat. Then we have question from Manasa. Can I add drop menu style options for additional data variables I add?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we do not support yet the multiple choice or single choice options, or like radio buttons in general in extraction one. But this is something we've definitely raised to our product team, and yeah, hopefully this is something that could happen soon as well.
Thanks, Geeta. Then we have this question. If I'm assessing barriers and facilitators to the implementation of an intervention, would I delete all the irrelevant columns and the intervention section in the intervention section and add barriers facilitator as separate sections? So your barriers and facilitators would be your outcomes. So what I would suggest is that you can add in your template one outcome named barriers, another outcome named facilitators, and both the outcomes set as qualitative, as I'm assuming those are qualitative outcomes. And then when you are extracting the data, you would you wouldn't have to delete any irrelevant columns, but you can select the relevant columns. So the way it works is that you list all your outcomes in your template, and then when you are actually extracting the data, you select what's reported in the study. Hope that answers your question. Then we have a question from Casa. I have an Excel sheet ready for extraction stage. Will you recommend that? Because I had said things that I will be looking into, as some of the sections like intervention section can be a bit tricky as my scoping review is on exposure to violence. So if your review is on exposure, as Geeta showed, that you can use the intervention sections to list your exposures, and then when you're extracting the data, you can select exposures instead of interventions. And in your results section, you will see you can enter data for exposures. So it really depends on how you set up your intervention section, and you will be able to extract your data accordingly. What again, I would like to emphasize that use the demo review, see if it works for you. Try to set up the template a little bit, try to play around a little bit. If it works for you, go ahead. If you feel that it's getting complicated, then you can use the Excel sheet as well. Is there a way to highlight sentences in the PDF in Covidence? Unfortunately, that's not available in Covidence yet. It's only available for the risk of bias assessment in data extraction 1, but not in the data extraction section currently. And then we have this question which is related to viewing the tool. Is there a way to split the extraction form across two screens? One thing I struggle with is the PDF being very small or awkward to scroll around. Having an option to have the PDF on a separate screen to the extraction form would be helpful. Well, thank you for the feedback. Currently, what we have, I mean, we have created this platform so that it just becomes easier for you to have the PDF on the left-hand side and the form on the right-hand side. And I would suggest that you could probably use the resize option so that your form has higher visibility, and then you can use a second screen to open up the PDF.
Yeah, so on the PDF viewer today, when I showed you, there's an option to maximize, to like zoom in to the PDF, and this will be separate to your form. Nothing will happen to your form, so you can be as flexible as possible with maximizing the information as needed on your PDF.
Thank you, Geeta. Then we have this question, is it possible to create several groups on different topics in data extraction in one review? Example, 150 papers for final data abstraction, 1x pharma group, 1x BMI group. So
So
what?
oh yeah, sorry. So usually it's just we recommend for each review, it tackles more or less one review question, and that will provide you with one Prisma and one data extraction template. So if you feel that your, let's say, review is having 3 questions, we definitely recommend, let's say, separating them. But if you need to, there's other workarounds, which could be, let's say, tagging the references relevant to this review question, and then but the problem is going to be your data extraction template. But maybe also you can just fit everything in one template and then extract the ones you need. Correct, Razia? This is something we could recommend.
Yes, I think so. You can also use the tag function to tag your studies based on the groups, so to make it easier. Then, does the machine learning app work in scanned PDF as well as born digital PDF? Well, it depends. For the identification, it will work, but if you have the DOI, but for the intervention part of it, it might not work.
Sorry, so one thing to clarify, Razia, for both and any automatic
Mhm.
suggestions in Covidence, you have to have a DOI available, whether it's
Yeah.
an identification or the intervention section. And this is the most important part. And let's say if it's an open access, that's fine, and you don't have the PDF, the large language model could still extract these data. But if it's a closed access PDF, that's when you need the PDF for the large language model to extract your data. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Gita, for the clarification. Then Eve is asking for the method section. How do I extract the specific equipment, methods, and settings used in each study? You can add the additional methods custom section, custom question, and then you can use that to extract anything that you like, including the specific equipment or the settings that are used in each study. Settings is by default, it's also there in the identification section. So if you want to use that, you that question, you can use that as well. Then, is this template also suitable for meta-analysis investigating the prevalence of a certain disease? Well, for prevalence as well, you can use this template. You can use this template, but again, everything depends on because Covidence doesn't support meta-analysis. While you can export data to RevMan, RevMan might not support you with your prevalence study, but when you're exporting the data, even in the CSV, then you can import that data sheet to your statistical software, whether you're using R or Stata, SAS, anything. And then you can use that for your meta-analysis of prevalence. And yes, I have used the data exported from Covidence for my meta-analysis of prevalence of certain diseases. Then we have this question of how use methods, intervention, or other field to extract specific equipment and protocol settings used in each study. Again, you can use additional methods to add in anything that you would like to add. Then we have this thing. If you start to extract data, example on 3 studies, and then you revise your template without sending the first 3 studies back to start over, how will the data be presented at the end? At the end, when you're exporting your data into a CSV, you will see those data will be blank from the studies. Like you will still see the columns because those columns were there for a few studies, but for the rows that specifically have the studies where those columns were in there, you will see the blank cells for those. Then we have this question from Anna. Can there be a team leader who supervises the reviewers without being one?
I can just one thing to add is on this question is the team settings. So I think the team settings is the right way to limit specific people from doing one thing and keeping one person, which could be your lead reviewer, to let's say extract all the data as a first reviewer. Because there's limitations around what reviewer one and reviewer two can do. So reviewer two cannot add the outcomes and interventions on a study level. So you could start with limiting who you need to be the first reviewer in all these, let's say, studies, and it could be an experienced reviewer, but you could also limit it to the people who like them to be exactly the people only who can create and edit the template, which is again, you're going to be the masterpiece. And it's very important to have the template consistent all the time. So everyone is extracting the data is going to be based on what you actually include in the template. So this is around the limitations we have and how you can allocate specific people to do what. And this is same for the consensus if you're doing dual reviewer extraction.
Thanks, Geeta and Razia. If you would like to take one more question, we're right at time.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there are a lot of questions. So
Yeah.
sorry we cannot respond live to everyone. But please feel free to contact us support@covidence.org for any question that pertains to your review. Um,
Razia, can I pick just one?
yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, it might be the last one for the day, but
Yeah.
it's very interesting. It's just that about something about the vitamin C. So I'm in the middle of data extraction and just realized that I may have included too many separate interventions in my template. For example, she included vitamin C 500 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams, and 1,500 individually. It would be much easier to follow your recommendation and group all of these in at the study level by doses. Since I'm already halfway through, can I adjust my template now? Yes. There's two questions here. So you could, first question, what you did is absolutely fine. It's really up to the reviewers. But this is why it's important to do live demonstrations to our users, just to let them know that there's actually a possibility to add multiple groups within the study level and add the different group names. And of course, if the large language model is able to allocate these, then to link that automatically to the suggestions provided. So you could either keep your work as is, and this is especially if you're really underway, work is really underway, or you could switch, go edit the template and just add vitamin C and keep the rest. But when you really publish again, and maybe you have reached some studies that are now moved to your complete list or you have reached consensus, then the warning will ask you, would you want to move the ones that you have completed to the in progress status, meaning that you won't lose any data, but what will happen is the changes will be applied, and then you just need to re-extract the data relevant to these studies. So it's really up to you. If you're just starting, you could do this, edit the template, and do something similar to what we did today. If not, just carry on, and if you're almost done, there's no reason to really stop this work and adjust the template. That's all.
Excellent. Thank you,
Okay.
Razia and Geeta, for such detailed information for our participants for this session. Be sure to join us in our upcoming webinar, Building Your Data Extraction Template, coming this May. Thank you, and always write into our support channel with any questions. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Delinda, Razia.